Gonna try to get through this with my cat not going crazy. So, hey there, my name's Owen, and I am going to be doing a deep dive on groupthink. So, let's get into it. In this presentation, I'm going to go over the origins of groupthink, an explanation of what it is, some applications of the theory, a couple artifacts, one being scholarly and one being a pop culture artifact, and also I will share my references that I used. So, the idea of groupthink comes from a book made by Irving Janis, who was a social psychologist. And this book was titled Victims of Groupthink, a psychological study of foreign policy decisions and fiascos. And that was released in 1972, and he also revised it and then released it in 1982. So, what is groupthink? So, groupthink was designed to explain how groups may perpetuate poor decision making, especially based on their desire for unanimity or the desire to be one. So, that's what groupthink is, and I'm going to get into a little explanation based on our textbook. So, for groupthink to occur, there has to be a few preceding things happening for groupthink to occur, and these are outlined as what is called antecedent conditions. And these I like to think of as ingredients in the recipe for groupthink, but groupthink isn't guaranteed. So, what this means is these are the factors that'll be occurring that could lead to groupthink. However, it doesn't always happen. So there's three things there. The first one is cohesion, and this is kind of connection and solidarity within the group. The next one is structural flaws, and this is problems with how the actual group is structured. And this includes a few things, one being group insulation, and this is where the group is kind of isolated from others, they're kind of in their own little world. Also, biased leadership. This is where leaders in the group kind of already have their own decision made and people don't want to go against it. There's also could be a lack of procedural norms, which is where if there isn't a formal process to follow when decision making occurs, it could lead to groupthink. And then also homogeneity, which is where members of the group are very similar. They're very similar based on their personal characteristics. That is a hard word to say. And then there's also situational characteristics. And this is because groupthink is more likely to occur in situations that have high stress. So, high stress situations could include things that have like time pressure, so you're making decisions very quickly. Or if the group has had any recent failures, they'll feel less confident to make decisions. There's also the idea of a moral dilemma, which means if there are solutions to a problem a group is faced with, and those solutions have sort of ethical quandaries based on them, the group will be more likely to pick the less hot button item and even not consider if that less ethically difficult answer is a good answer. They'll just go with the one that's kind of easier from an ethical standpoint. So those are some of the antecedent conditions, and those are what will lead to groupthink. However, there are some things that have to be observed to actually be considered groupthink, and those are called symptoms. And Janice outlined 8 observable manifestations of groupthink, and these are things that you can observe when the group is operating, and they're grouped into 3 main categories here. So, first category, overestimation of the group, and this is where group members might overinflate their abilities, and there are a couple ways this is done. One is invulnerability or the illusion of invulnerability, and this is the belief that the group just can't fail. There is also the belief in morality or the inherent morality of the group, and this is where the group believes they're good people, so the decisions they make must also be good, right? So that's the inherent moral of the group, belief in morality. The next category is closed mindedness. So this includes things like stereotyping of outgroups or demonizing other people, that kind of thing, and also collective rationalization. And this is where group members might justify their decisions they're making by kind of talking each other into it. And last category would be uniformity pressures. And this is where group members might actively avoid critical thinking. Um, Things like self censorship. This is where members are unlikely to speak up even if they have doubts about something. There's also the illusion of unanimity, and that is where group members feel there's already been a consensus made, everybody's got their minds made up, so why should they speak up? There is also self appointed mind guards, and that is where people are kind of being careful not to say anything on the contrary to the group. And then there's also things like direct pressure on dissenters, and this is where opposition to group consensus is discouraged or even like flat out not permitted. So, those are the 8 observable manifestations, and our textbook gives us a really handy little chart here that I think explains it very well. So on the left side of your screen, you will see the antecedents, or the things that are in the works that could lead to groupthink. And then on the right side are the actual observable symptoms of that groupthink occurring. So I think this is a really handy way to look at groupthink. And this is on page 144 of the 3rd edition of our textbook, if you want to take a look. So what is this theory actually used for in the world? Well, when Janus wrote in his books, he applied it to mostly foreign policy decisions, such as the Pearl Harbor bombing, Vietnam War, and also the Bay of Pigs invasion. However, groupthink can also be applied in various fields such as social psychology, foreign policy analysis, organizational theory, group decision making sciences, and also management. So it has very broad applications in communications and others. So, with all that being said, I have a couple artifacts prepared for you guys that we can talk about and look into. So, the first one is more of a scholarly artifact, and this is an article written by Akshaya Kamalnath, and it is entitled Gender Diversity as the Antidote to Groupthink on Corporate Boards. And this study examined whether inclusion of women on corporate boards was helpful in preventing groupthink. So, what did they find in this study? Well, they found that if women were on the board, they could help prevent groupthink, but these women would have to be considered almost as outsiders to that group for it to be effective. So the authors also state in the discussion that factors such as race, professional background, and various other factors should also be examined in the future, not just gender. So I also put the abstract here. If you wanted to pause and read through it, feel free. But with this artifact, I came up with a discussion question for you guys. And my question is, what portion of groupthink, as presented by Janice and in our textbook, do you think led to the finding that women being on corporate boards helped decrease groupthink only if they were considered outsiders? So what I'm asking here is, what part of that groupthink chart, or what part of groupthink as an idea, led to the finding that the women being on corporate boards only helped decrease groupthink if they were considered outsiders? So that's kind of a fun discussion question I came up with, which leads us into our next artifact, which is more of a pop culture one. This one hits hard. So this is a video uploaded by the very popular YouTube channel and company, The Try Guys. It was uploaded this month in 2022, and in this video they explain that one of their 4 members, Ned Fulmer, was engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member, and then they go on to explain that they've removed him from the company. He's no longer a member of the company and will also be removed from future videos going forward. And also kind of the business side of that and all the ramifications of that. But with that being said, I came up with a question. Do you guys think that this is an example of groupthink? If yes, why? And if no, how were they able to avoid groupthink? So those were my artifacts and discussion questions. Feel free to pause at any point, go and watch the video, or read through that abstract. But with that being said, here are my references, and I thank you for your time, and I hope you guys are having a great week, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye.